Hi, everyone. It is an absolute delight on this episode to be talking with someone whose work I've enjoyed for some time and someone who I am happy to report is also very kind when you meet them in person, and that is Mr. Matt Kindt. May I call you Matt? Is that okay?
Yep, that sounds good. Thank you.
Awesome. Yeah, yeah, thanks. Met you at Heroes Con a couple of years ago, and I was actually in line behind someone getting a portfolio review from you, and
Yeah.
was just
Oh no.
no, it was great. I loved it because I was just watching you kind of do the expert professional thing of mentoring somebody in the field, and it just connected with me in so many ways because, as I mentioned, I'm an educator and loved kind of seeing you go through that process of giving someone feedback in really supportive and honest ways. So shout out for that immediately at the top of the episode.
No, I here's what I'll say about that. A portfolio review at a convention is maybe the trickiest thing to navigate at a convention
Yeah.
because you're there in two roles. One is a person is probably likes your work, right? So you like
Mhm.
there's that. I was like, I don't want to say something uh uh offensive, and now you hate my stuff.
Right, right.
I was like, I don't want to lose somebody who likes my work, but at the same time, uh, you have to balance that with like, well, I want you to be better, right? Or if there's
Mhm.
something you can improve on, I want to say it. And so I think having gone through art school and learned how to go through critiques and also give critiques, um, that was a huge help, because you do the sandwich, the positive, negative, positive, like critique sandwich of feedback,
Yeah.
and so for sure you do that, because because they're not there. Hopefully, you just hope that they're not there to just get positive feedback, right? They're there
Yeah.
because they honestly want to be better, And one of my favorite memories is being in it was like my senior year of high school or first year of college, something like that. I had done a couple of 8-page short stories, just like crime stories, and Scott McCloud was coming through town and he was doing a signing at the local comic shop. So I was like, oh, it took all my courage that, I printed out my 8-page story and had it bound and to give it to him just for feedback. Because I wanted him to see it. And I also it was an excuse just to talk to him for a minute, rather than
Mhm.
being
Mhm.
a dopey kid getting something signed. And I'm socially awkward, so it's like I don't know what to talk about, but here we go. And I remember coming up and giving it to him, and he flipped through it all, and he's real nice about it. He's like, "Work on your hands," and
Nice.
and I promise you, uh, the next week I bought a sketchbook for
Mhm.
hands, and I just worked on hands, and I filled the whole sketchbook full of hands, drawing them. I got a couple books on, this is like pre-internet, or the internet was just being born, so
Yeah.
there's not a lot of photo reference. So I got books on hands, and I worked on my hands, and I never forgot that, But I was looking for help, you know what I mean? Or tell me,
Yeah.
I can't see it. You tell me, you know what you're looking at. So I try to do that.
Yeah, that's cool, and cool that you have that um, sort of experience and that insider experience of being on both sides of the table in that way too.
No, it was cool. I remember San Diego many years later going to a dinner and sitting next to Scott McCloud, and I
Yeah.
told him that story, and he had no memory of it, of course, because it's, I mean, you have those interactions all the time, and and it but yeah, it was great to be able to tell him that story as a professional, and we're at the
Yeah.
same dinner together. I was like, oh, this is great. I love it, and it it's great to uh, be working in an industry where you are fans of some of these people, and now you're
Mhm.
with these people as like one of them or something. And I don't know. It's just comics is great. I love how small it can be.
Yeah, yeah. Well, and I've heard wonderful things about the community and community of support among creators. I guess that's a natural lead into that question of how you knew comics for the space, because you obviously are attracted to story. We're both sort of showing off our shelfies here. So there's definitely that aspect of it. But what was it about comics that sort of makes them ideal for you?
Yeah, I think I was a very inward looking kid, and growing up, again I was very socially. It was not very outgoing. I'm a what is it? What's the opposite of outgoing? I forget the word.
Introvert? Is that the one?
Introvert is
Hmm.
exactly what that's exactly right. Uh, so I knew I was that, but I wanted to be a creator. I wanted to tell stories, tell visual stories, and originally I was like, oh, I'll go into filmmaking, but then I was, I'm a student of all kinds of storytelling, and I realized, oh, you're working with way too many people. You have to do too much talking to strangers,
Hmm.
and
Hmm.
too much collaboration, and then there's just too many moving parts. And I was like, I don't have it in me to do that. Like as a social person, I can't do that. So it lent comics lent itself to me just being alone by myself making the stuff, and I don't have to work with someone. I don't have to ask permission. I don't have to, um, uh, you just don't have to collaborate. And then, and that's what I think even to this day, like most of my favorite books and work are works that are by one person because it's such a pure look into the person and it's such a pure voice of art and story, that you don't get in any other medium. Maybe prose writing, you can get it.
Hmm.
Um, but with movies, it's not the same, and that's why I love comics so much. But the irony is, like 20 years later, I love collaborating. I love working with artists. It's actually the most fun I have now. Like I still write on my own and do my own thing, and it's fun, but um, it's very lonely,
Yeah.
so it's kind of nice to have an artist to talk to, or even like I co-wrote a book with my mom last year, and it was like
Hmm.
such a important uh thing for us, for
Yeah.
our relationship, and just like it, at the time in our lives, it was like it it was fun. It's fun making up the story and doing the story, but that collaboration serves such a larger, like I don't know, like a positive role in my life, or
Yeah.
element in my life, that I'm glad that I'm doing that now.
Yeah, and that's a collaboration. That's an interaction that doesn't go away. That's something that is now this permanent sort of reminder, memento connection. I was going to ask about how your creative process has sort of changed and evolved. So that links with that perfectly.
Yeah, no, it's funny because I have two modes of working, and one is I sit and do my own thing,
Hmm. Hmm.
and I draw it out, or sketch it out, or come up with ideas, and then thumbnail and do, and like that, like the actual process hasn't changed too much in that every time is different, but it's also the same. So it's different in that the idea comes from somewhere, or I start drawing, or it comes with the idea as a visual first, and then I write to that visual and
Hmm.
sort of construct around it, or I come up with an idea or an ending to a story and then figure out how to get there, or I come up with just like a character that I want to move around in space, and then so every story is different in how it sort of emerges, but then there's a certain point where then I click onto the rails and it's like, okay, I write an outline. All right, now I got to write a script, and
Hmm.
then I do thumbnails, and then I draw the thing, and then the script for myself is slightly different than the script I would write for another artist, because I don't have to be, it's in here already. It's more of just a reminder of what's here, so I
Hmm.
can trip that memory again. So like the nuts and bolts haven't really changed in that regard, but with collaboration, it's I like it because it's a little different every time. It's a little scary. It's different. You're working with a different ego or a different personality every time, and so uh, it's kind of fun to navigate that, figure out how to do that in a healthy way where
Yeah.
everybody's happy. And I think that's the best. If the other person you're working with is happy and excited about it, then something good's going to come out of that. As long as we're both like that.
Hmm. Hmm.
I think that's the fun of collaboration to me. And the thing, when I was younger, um, there was ego there where I was like, I'm just going to prove I can do it. Here's what I can do. The older
Hmm.
I get, the more I'm like, okay, this is what I can do. You've seen it, whether you like it or not, that's one thing, but here's what I can do. So that part's over. And now it's like, I just want to have fun. I want to come up with new ideas. And then what happens when we mix these two ingredients together, me and somebody else, you
Yeah.
know, and and then you get to somewhere different because you have this whole other person with other ideas, and to me it's just a wealth of fun and creativity that now you're mixing together into something totally new.
Yeah, that's cool. Very cool. And the stories that you tell are really interesting, from Ether to Mind Management to Berserker to Mr. Mammoth. I mean, it's literary work, it's science fiction oriented work. It's really high concept. So I imagine part of that is fun for you to sort of tell the stories that you want to tell. What do you hope that readers take from traveling through some of those experiences with you?
Yeah, I just hope, first of all, I hope it's entertaining, you know?
Yeah,
Like
yeah.
I know that if I'm having fun making it, that it's probably going to be fun to look at or read, you know? And so as long as I'm having fun doing it, and I don't think there's a book. I'm trying to think if there's a book I've done where I didn't have fun doing it. And there isn't, you know, and I think the success of books vary, you know, depending on, just because every book's not going to be the best book.
Hmm. Hmm.
Uh,
Hmm.
but I know I've had fun doing every one, and there's something good in every book I could pick out, you know, and there's a million things I can pick out that I'd like to improve. Um,
Sure,
but
sure.
yeah, I think at the end of the day, I would like I want readers to get out what I want to get out of books, which is be inspired to make something. You know, like hopefully there's an idea in there that I didn't follow all the way, that you're like, oh, it sparks something, and then you're creating something,
Hmm.
or um, or just I don't. Hopefully you had fun reading it, you know, or
Yeah.
maybe it let you think about an idea in a different way, or it gave you a different perspective and a way of thinking of something. And then, and it's funny, a lot of I skim reviews. I don't really read a lot of reviews, but I skim them just to see what uh, see how they landed, you know, because you don't really know until people read it. You don't
Hmm.
see the impact of what you've done. Um, so I skim it for that just to see how it goes. I'm always surprised sometimes by the reaction. Some people think a book is very dark. I did a book called Hairball, um,
Hmm.
which a lot of the reaction to that was like, "Oh, this is so much darker than anything I've done." And I guess I was like, I guess it is. I didn't really think about it that way. I was just trying to come up with some gross ideas, but then uh, I'd never done horror before, so I was trying to. I was like, I don't know how to do horror. Horror, there's gross things in it, but I also wanted there to be like a heart to the thing and a point to it all, you
Yeah.
know. And so I thought at the end, I was like, well, it's kind of, it's dark but optimistic. And I always feel like all of my books, if you take away anything, there's hopefully there's some optimism there. There's never like as sad as the ending is, or as bittersweet as it is. Hopefully that there's some optimism there, or some kind of redeeming, like you know, just keep on going,
Yeah.
kind of message to it.
Yeah. But no, you were talking about that creative process of writing out, sketching, thumbnailing, drawing. Uh, Sounds like you get to live with the project for quite some time as well. So I'm curious about in the process, like how long that takes to go through, because I've heard graphic novels especially are sort of this immersive, I mean, working on it for an incredibly long time sort of process.
Yeah, it's that's why I like writing for other artists, because it gives me an escape from the thing I'm drawing, because I've been drawing on this book I wrote with my mom for probably a year, not a year, maybe a year. I'm afraid to look at the dates on the on the some of the files, uh but I was drawing, that's what I was doing today before I got in here. I was drawing all day. I was like, I'm just gonna stay home and draw all day. And then
Wow.
because it's 160 pages and it'll probably take me a year to finish it. I'm getting near the end. I have like 40 pages left. Uh but yeah, when I'm drawing it, it's fun. The writing is fun, the collaboration is fun. And then there's a point where I have to sit down and thumbnail all of the script, thumbnail it out to figure out how many pages and the storytelling. That's really the hardest part. The hardest part in the process is taking written script and the ideas I could see in my head, and then physically then putting them on paper and figuring out how the progression of the panels and the page turns and all of that. Like
Yeah.
translating that uh, into a visual is the hardest part. So once I'm done with that, I was like, it's great because the rest is completely brainless. It's like just rendering, right? Drawing figures in space and figuring out camera angles and everything, which is kind of fun. And then, so I've penciled the whole book, and literally what I'm doing now is inking. So the inking is more brainless than brainless. It's like it's the, like I just watched, listen to audiobook all day, YouTube streaming in the background, and I just draw literally for like 12 hours.
Yeah.
The whole day will just melt by because it's just like it's kind of therapeutic, you know.
Hmm.
So I
Hmm.
enjoy it, but I also hate it because I'm in the middle of the panel. I'm like, oh, are they? These characters have been talking forever, but it's just a handful of pages, you know. So, but it feels like I'm lost in the weeds, and I was like, I got
Right.
to trust the process, trust that the script. was good. I knew what I was doing then because it was like a different person wrote it,
Mhm.
and and trust that I'm not lost. I'm just in the middle, you know. And then when it's all done, it'll be inked and it's lettered, and I'll go through it all, and then all the enough time will have gone by between the time I wrote the script and have drawn it that I can look at it as if I'm just a stranger looking at it, and I can flip through the whole thing and be very self-critical, where it's like,
Mhm.
oh, this doesn't work, or this needs a page, or this panel doesn't work, or redraw, and then the final step of the process is when I think it's done, I give it to my wife and I give her a digital file PDF, and I just have her go through the whole thing, and she'll just circle with red, like hands. It's like redraw hand. I still get the note. I
It's the
still get that
theme.
note. Yeah, yeah. But she will, or her head's too big, or this or that. So I have her go through one more time, and it's to me, it's critical to have somebody like that who isn't scared to give the note. Like I
Mhm.
do get mad, but I get mad privately by myself. I don't, I don't let her see that it hurt my feelings, you know. And then I calm down, and I'm like, thank you. It's every note's correct. She's an artist too in her own right, so I
Mhm.
100% respect her take and her eye, but it's just there's still that a little bit of a bruise you take when somebody's like, oh, you don't like it. It's like, oh, but it's fixable. Everything's fixable.
Yeah, that the courage to create, I think, lives in its own place, and then there's that courage to revise, the courage to read what you wrote. That's a whole other kind of courage, I'm sure.
Yeah. No, it's good, and that's why I do a lot of projects simultaneously. So there's a little compartment in my brain, and I jump from one to the other, and I forget about the other one. I all the way forget about it. So when I go back and read it, even if it's something I wrote like a week ago, I vaguely remember it, but I have to like flush it all the way out to write the other thing, just so I'm fully in that world. And then so I do come off as like absent-minded to my friends and people I work with because I was like, I was like, what happened? Oh yeah, okay, I remember that. But it's one is out of necessity because I can't be writing like four things at once and keep them all in my head. I just can't do it. So I have to flesh that out all the way, and then make sure I've made notes for myself so I can revisit it when it is time to work on it again. The side benefit of that is I can come back to a thing I wrote a week ago and with totally fresh eyes and see it for what it is. I was like, oh, that doesn't quite work, does it? Or oh, that's pretty good, but this, or it's obvious what needs fixing. So it's nice to be able to have that distance, even if it's just sometimes my brain artificially creating it. It's not time, it's just my brain forgetting to go back and have the distance where I can just be more objective about it. I think that's critical to any creation. I think is being uh, uh, honest with yourself, and then I think you could go too far the other way where you look at everything and you think it's horrible. It's like, well, that's not productive either. Like if you hate your own work, uh that's not good,
Right.
and I do I just don't hate it right away. I try to work fast enough where I still like it, still new enough that I like it, and like a year from now I'll hate it a year late from now, but I won't hate it like a week from now. A year goes by, and then sorry, too late, it's already in a book. What can I do except
That's
make
right.
the next book better?
It's out there in the world. You
Yeah,
didn't crumble
exactly.
it up, so it's there.
No, no, a friend of mine told me one time because I was having that problem early on. I was doing these mini comics, and I was like, "Yeah, this is terrible. I'm just gonna throw it out, or I just don't want anybody to see it." He's like, "No, you save it all because that's that art and those drawings and everything there. That's an artifact
Mhm.
of a snapshot of where you were at that time, and not just like your talent or your ability, but like where you were, or especially if you're writing and everything too. It's like where your mind was and what you cared about, and it's just like looking at an old photo of yourself. It is kind of fun to remember where you were, and it shows that you did grow. If you hate it, that means you're better now.
Yep,
Hopefully.
absolutely. Absolutely. Well, I usually ask about most positive collaborations, but it sounds like the current project with your mom is definitely one that is coming along and is a positive experience. So wonderful to hear about that and looking forward to that
Yeah.
being out in the world.
Yeah, no, that's good. I told my mom it's so funny that I'd worked on Berserker with Keanu, and
Uh-huh,
uh
uh-huh.
and uh and that was probably the biggest most high profile collaboration I've ever done. And that was I was skeptical of that when I went in, and then he ended up being such a great writing partner, like
Oh, awesome.
every step of the way. Um, but it was in that working relationship that sort of taught me how to be a better collaborator, because he came to me and he had kind of a big idea. I was like, okay, well, how do I fit in and like still have my voice heard? And then, but it's both of ours, not just his.
Mhm.
How do I be a part of this? And he was really good about it, and him modeling how to work with me was modeled how I could work with my mom later. I was like, oh,
Nice.
if he can do that with me, I can do that with her, and and now I know how to do it. We just like their interaction, how we work on the outline, just everything, every little nitty gritty part of it. It was like showing me how to do it. And
Yeah.
I think because he has collaborated with so many people over his career,
Oh,
uh,
yeah.
it made him a good collaborator. Where wasn't. I'm terrible at, what I mean. I'm terrible at collaborating because I don't like to. I never did. I had to learn. I'm still learning how to do it. And so I think that really helped. Um, yeah, I recommend it.
Yeah, yeah. And now your mom and Keanu are now part of this very cool club. Like they share the same space, which is
Yeah,
very
they
cool.
are. My mom texts me crossword New York Times crossword puzzle with his name in it, and then I forward it to him. I'm like, "You're in the crossword puzzle again." I'm sort of their go between. It's a very weird middleman position.
Nice, nice. Love it. Well, in addition to what you're working on right now, anything that you'd like to mention that currently has your creative attention, including the book that you're listening to on audio? Always curious about that, as well as places where people can go to follow along and see what you're creating.
Yeah, yeah. Okay, so three things. First one is if you go to my Patreon, Patreon/ Matt Kindt. I don't know how to get the link to, but if you go there, I do a web comic,
Mhm.
and that's probably the most fun. I spend like 2 days a week drawing the thing, and it's just like it's like a comic strip. I treat it like it's sort of inspired by Dick Tracy, so it's like a crime comic, and I have a big outline for it, and every week I write and draw one, color it and everything, and just post it up there as like a little weekly comic. And that's probably the most undiluted comic book fun I have every
Mhm.
week. It's because like it's just whatever I'm in the mood for. And I'm drawing like a crime comic, and it's real colorful. And so I think that's the most pure comics I've done in a long time, because it's not for a publisher. It's not for any. It'll eventually be a book, maybe if I like it. After a couple of years, I'll put it in a book or something. But it's really just pure comics for a comic's sake. So I'm having fun doing that. In addition to the published work. And then what I'm reading right now, I'm actually going through all the John le Carre
Oh
book,
yeah.
which I'd read. I thought I'd read them all, and I think I just read the Smiley books. And so I went started from the beginning. I bought a big box set, and I'm going through them all, you know, in order again. And they're all very good, very different,
Mhm.
but very
Mhm.
good. So I recommend those if you haven't read any of them. But if you're only going to pick and choose, I'd do Tinker Tailor Soldier Spy is I mean, people, you've heard of it because for a reason, because it's probably his best, but it's really
Yeah.
good.
Funny you should mention that because I used to travel when I was doing my doc program. I had like almost 90 minutes on the road one way. And John le Carre was one of the audiobooks that was a go-to. So absolutely. Yeah.
Yeah, no, it's a good travel book, and it's so interesting to me. Two things. One is he started writing it like right after Ian Fleming's James Bond came out. I looked that up. I was like, what is because he's like the opposite. It's like the opposite in every way of everything James Bond could be, which I
Hmm.
also love.
Hmm.
Bond, as a kid, I always loved it. Uh, but I love these because it's on purpose the opposite. And and then most of the books, I was telling my wife this. I was like, they're so odd. The plot and the structure. It's like nothing's happening in these books. It's one guy walking around and then interviewing people, and they're telling him a story, and that's
Yeah.
that's the whole book. But somehow it's still a page turner. I was like, I'm trying to dissect how that works and how it's still so good and entertaining without there actually being any action happening.
Yeah.
it's
Yeah.
it's a conundrum that I love.
Yeah. And part of the skill of authoring, right? There's not one way to do it.
Yeah, yeah, no, it's great. It's he's mystifying to me, but It's
Yeah.
good. What was it? There was a third question. I forgot what the last one was.
Oh, anything else creatively that has your attention at the moment? I know you're currently working on the collaboration, but anything that you'd like to mention in that way?
Oh yeah, I'm trying to think. No, I have a new series coming out with Danny McDade, doing the art on. If you're reading this, I'm already dead, which is kind of my love letter to journalism.
Yeah.
You know, and that some people say, I don't know, you're torturing this character. She's going through all this. I was like, yeah, yeah, but no, she's the hero. She's gonna make it. Uh, Spoiler, she's not dead. But anyway, it's because I journalism. It's interesting. It's one of those. I always ask uh one of the top when you can't think of anything to talk about. It's like, oh, what would you do in your life if you couldn't do what you do, or you couldn't do anything related to what you're doing in your job? Because I love what I do. So I was like, it's a hard question for me. I was like, I don't know what I would do. And then I think I would do cooking, um, uh, would be one thing, or music, something, or like journalism.
Oh yeah,
Which
yeah,
I don't think I'd be good. I wouldn't be good at it, but I think I would be interested in it.
yeah, yeah. Join the ranks of Hemingway and fashioning stories out there somewhere. Yeah.
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 Yeah, no, that's right. I love I'm friends with a guy, a journalist. He writes for baseball, and I'm like, so he has such a creative. I was like, oh, this how can you be creative in that? And he shows a way to be creative in it that's so fun to me that I was like, that you make we're jealous of each other's jobs, I think. I think he's jealous of me. I don't know if he's jealous if he knows I'm jealous of him, but it seems fun to me.
Yeah, yeah. Well, very cool, Matt. Thank you for the time. Thank you for the
All right. Well,
conversation.
Yeah, no, I really appreciate it. Thanks for having me.
My pleasure. Thanks for saying yes, and I'm sure I will see you at HeroesCon again sometime in the near future. Always glad to share about your work, and always glad to have you back for any follow-up conversation.
Okay, sounds good.
Thanks so much.